Hi again everyone. So now I'd like to consider what is probably the most complicated set of data on the pre-release material, as shown by the 7 charts that we have in front of us. So where do we begin here? Well, we first of all begin by making sure that we're all aware of the exam board erratum notice. So if I just go to the pre-release material here, this word extra should not say extra, this should say inter-regional trade. You can see figure 4.3 refers to inter-regional trade and intra-regional trade. Intra being within a trading bloc, trade between the UK and France for example, and then inter-regional trade means that trade is taking place between nations, countries which are not part of the same trading bloc, so United Kingdom and Canada for example. So do make sure that you're aware of that and you have made a note of that and amended that on your pre-release material. So let's get back to the data. This is I have, as you can see, I've spliced up the pre-release material document to try and put these in a more presentable, easily understood fashion, but it's still quite difficult to get your head around this data. The first thing to note, I think, is the scale of the data. They are not the same scale, because if you look here at the Middle East, where we've got intra, you can see here intra-regional trade shown in grey. Well, in the Middle East in 2015, that very small grey slither is worth 15% of total trade for the Middle East. Whereas if you look over here for North America, 1990, a similarly small slither worth 41%. So the scale on these makes comparison just simply by looking at it and looking at the colours, it makes it very difficult indeed. So on your pre-release material you will not have these percentage changes at the top, and I just want to run through where these numbers have come from, because they are, in terms of your overall analysis, they are quite important numbers. Let's use North America as an example. You know that these numbers, 548, 1225, 2282, these are all in US dollars, billions. So 548 billion in 1990, 2282 billion in 2011, or 2.2 trillion US dollars. So what I have done first of all to get these percentage changes, 316.4, is worked out the percentage change from 548 billion to 2282 billion. Now, again, I apologise if you find this an insult, but let me just show you how to do that. So we take the difference between the two numbers, so that's 2282, and from that we take the original number, which is 548. So that gives us 1734. So we then take that number equals 1734, and we divide that by the original, because we want to see the percentage change from 1990. So we divide by 548, and to give us our percentage we multiply, as you know I'm sure, by 100. And that gives us our 316.4. So that is where I'm getting this 316.4%. So the total value of trade, and let's just go back to our extract here, it is showing the value of inter and intra-regional trade in billions of dollars. So the total value of trade in North America went up by 316.4% over that 2-decade period. The Middle East 806.7%, CIS 1260.3%, Asia 649.4%, Europe 283.4%, Africa 460.4%, and Southern and Central America 525.0%. Other things worth noting with regard to this data, we can see here in the CIS, Commonwealth of Independent States, in 1990, and indeed in 2000, it's not shown anyway, but certainly in 1990 we did not have any there's no grey bar there, no intra-regional trade. Now the reason for that is because the CIS did not come into existence until 1991. So the CIS, which is Russia and other former constituents of the Soviet Union, didn't come into formation until 1991, and therefore we have no data for 1990. I've made a note there that Russia and its former constituent blocs would obviously be primarily exporting oil and gas to Europe, Africa and North America. If we now look at the case of Africa, you can see 1990, no mention of intra-regional trade. 1991, no mention of intra-regional trade. 2011, small mention, 12% intra-regional trade. So of all of the trade that was taking place in Africa, only 12% was going between one African nation and another. The rest of the trade was taking place with countries outside of Africa. And one reason for that might be that really Africa, you can think of it really as one big diamond mine essentially, and simply exporting and servicing the rest of the developed world. Intra-regional trade is becoming more important elsewhere. You can see that I think that's predominantly the case right throughout the rest of the nations, that the grey bars are getting bigger, and so that obviously makes it difficult for developing nations to get a foothold in the developed world, when the developed world, the nations within the developed world, they're all coming together, forming these regional trading blocks and trading with one another, and that obviously makes the penetration of those markets very difficult for developing nations. The Middle East, again, primarily we would be exporting oil, and again that would be the reason for the very significant inter-regional trade as opposed to intra-regional trade. Inter-regional trade has grown in importance in every country in absolute terms. So what do we mean by that? Well, we mean that if you work out the value, the percentage value for North America, Middle East, CIS, Asia, Europe, Africa, Southern and Central America, we mean that the value, so taking North America for example, 41% of 548, let's just work that out. so 548, and we want 41% of it. So that's worth $224 billion. And then if we go back to the data for North America, the intra-regional trades, I think that says 48%, but it's 48% of 2 trillion, or 2,282 billion. So again, 2,282 times 0.48 this time. So we're talking over $1 trillion worth of trade. So the numbers basically, in absolute terms, in every chart are going up. So that's what we mean by that. But we can also see that with the exception of Europe, they're also going up in relative terms. So by relative terms, we mean the percentage numbers in these bars are also, generally speaking, with the exception of Europe, they're going up. So we've 41% to 48, we've got nothing here to 15, nothing to 19, 42 to 52. Europe is the exception, 35 to 29. Africa, nothing to 12. South and Central America, 0 to 26%, I think that says. So, in absolute terms and relative terms, with the exception of Europe, intra-regional trade, so trading within your own regional trading bloc, not trading with people, outsiders really, intra-regional trade is becoming much more important, much more significant. The chart on Europe is an interesting one because it includes Europe as a whole. We've mentioned in the past that within the European Union there are 28 member nations. Well, this chart includes a few other countries which are members of Europe, but not necessarily members of the European Union. So we'll be talking about Iceland, Liechtenstein, Norway and Switzerland, so still European countries, but not signed up to the EU. And the final thing to note on this is the percentage changes. If you look at Asia, Asia is responsible for more trade than Europe and North America combined. So first of all, in terms of the percentage changes, quite clearly CIS is the leader there, closely followed by closely followed by the Middle East, then Asia, Southern and Central America. And Asia is also responsible for more trade than Europe and North America combined. So $5.5 trillion worth of trade, whereas North America is 2.2 trillion and Europe 2.7 trillion. So very significant numbers there coming out of Asia. Okay, so that's a little bit of info on figure 4.3, and next we will be on to figure 4.4.